Welcome to the Honest Health Podcast with your host, Jeffrey Burke. Honest Health brings you the brightest minds in the natural products industry, as well as athletes and entertainers. Jeff will keep you entertained and informed while educating on how to be successful on your healthy journeys. Now, here's your host, Jeffrey Burke.
Hello and welcome back to the Honest Health Podcast. My name is Jeffrey Burke. I thank you once again for stopping by. This is my newer platform, the one that brings you the up-to-date, groundbreaking information from some of the best minds within the natural products industry, as well as many voices from outside the industry. Because let's face it, in my mind, everybody has something to share. I feel that what we're trying to do here is bring informational tips and beneficial ideas that we can all learn from. You never know where that one missing piece of your mind puzzle, that one little piece that's going to be life-changing for you, where it's going to come from. So I hope it comes from one of my amazing guests. Today, we're going to be doing another deep dive into the mushroom world. This is our 6th deep dive episode. My guest, and I mean plural, today are Bill Chioffi and Tiffany Kiwaja, and we're going to be talking about mushrooms coming from Nammex. We're talking transparency and quality and integrity, and today the topic is shiitake. How fun is that? Hey guys, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Tiffany, this is your first one with me, so I'm so glad to have you and have you aboard. Your reputation precedes you.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad to put a face to your name and to be part of this. So thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Welcome back, Bill.
Thanks a lot, Dr. J. What do you say today?
Everything's good. Just got in town, was out of town again, training for Kokora, and I seem to be spending my time either in a seat in a plane or in an airplane seat, waiting to get on the plane and sit in the seat.
You are the quintessential road warrior, my friend.
I think so. Yeah, you think I'd be done with it by being this old ancient age, but it's all good. I'm loving it.
Only as old as you feel, right?
Okay, we can't do that today because I'm pretty tired and I feel old. So, but hey, thanks for being here today. I am really enjoying this series. You know, the whole idea of this series, you know, when we talked at the very beginning, Bill, was to allow people to really get a better understanding of these wonderful mushrooms and be able to focus on one at a time. So it's not overwhelming. So it's kind of like a class. It's kind of a series. And I've got a lot of retail employees that are watching these. I've got a lot of consumers, and they're walking away and they're like, I get it. I understand this. But they're also learning why all mushrooms are not created equal. They're also learning that there are mushrooms out there that are grown differently and more effectively. There's companies that have better transparency. So the whole idea here is not to talk about anything other than Nammex and what you guys are doing, because I think you're doing it right. In my mind, everybody brings something wonderful to the table, but the table today is set for Nammex. So we're going to talk about that. So go ahead and get started wherever you guys want to start with shiitake. It's a wonderful mushroom, been around a long time.
Mm-hmm. Would you like to start, Tiffany, or do you want me to break the ice and talk about shiitake?
Happy to start.
Please do.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to go like way back to the history of shiitake, it's pretty interesting. It literally means mushroom of the shi tree, which refers to the hardwood it naturally grows on in Japan. It's been cultivated for over 2,000 years. So it's been, utilized for a long time in ancient cultures. And now Nammex is, of course, cultivating it. And we uphold the most intense quality standards. So, we test everything twice, once before it leaves our Chinese production facility, and again once it arrives in California. And before we release anything, we test for a full panel of micros, pesticides, heavy metals, everything imaginable to make sure we are providing our customers with the best product possible. So we're very, very proud of our quality control standards.
And I am too. And I mean, I love that at Kokora we're kind of partnering up with you guys because, Rick is all about quality. And, Bill, you have a long history with Bill. Bill and I call them the duo, Bill and Rick, been together forever. I mean, I didn't even know your history when I first met Rick at the beginning. And then he told me, he goes, we go way back, way back. And I love that because Rick is one of those people that, he kind of makes friends for life. if you've had the chance to work with him, you have to kind of respect what he's done. And somebody asked me on the road this week, they said, do you think that Ric is, slowing down a little? And I said, no. I said, not by any means. So I think he's doing a great job. But I want to say something about your mushrooms. I'm getting amazing feedback on the quality and the integrity of the mushroom products that we're using and we're putting together and we're offering to the public from Kokora. People are loving these mushrooms and they feel very comfortable with it. They feel comfortable with your strict standards, the way that you grow, how you test, and the transparency that you bring to the public. So that's my thing of just, kind of saying thank you to what you're doing. Another question. Somebody asked me on the plane yesterday, they said, are there some mushrooms that at one time during history were only utilized by maybe royalty because they were only allowed to use it where it really weren't available to the public as much? And I said, I think reishi was one of those, but I wasn't sure about shiitake.
Shiitake has always been, to my understanding, since cultivation and discovering how to take it from the way it grew in the wild on hardwood decomposing logs and trees, was primarily just for food, for people, for common everyday folks. And that tradition and history is quite rooted in Zhejiang, in the province where Nammex's headquarters are in China. And I think, I do hear that about reishi, although I kind of struggle to find how you would document that. There are some documented things where, for sure, ginseng and some of these other substances that, but I think I kind of like to focus on things that are non-hierarchical, if I could say that, where we're sort of like, okay, why is that? It's not reserved for kings anymore. Thank goodness. So, and I think that making mushrooms more accessible by demystifying some of the things that people are being confused by is another part of the mission at Nammex, with our clarity about our standards and testing and quality. So, for me, shiitake, actually, that was the first mushroom I successfully grew myself in a hardwood log with just drilling a log and setting that up. And it's kind of one of the ones that people will teach you how to do, like dowel. What would that be called? Inoculation. Inoculation with wood dowels that have been put in a bag of fermented mycelia grain of some type, usually, or sawdust, and then the dowels can be just hammered into a wood log. And so that's how we cultivate them now. But going back in time, it was literally just axe slits in a log with spores, and it progressed through there in terms of the cultivation. Now, since it's a food product in China, that's one that has really great accessibility and scalability. And a little tidbit, I could say probably without doubt, that's Jeff Chilton's favorite mushroom to eat and talk about, I think, unless things have changed. Huh, Tiff? You've known Jeff for longer than I have, about as long as I have. Yeah.
Yeah, you could talk about the umami and flavor that shiitake brings to a product or to your palate any day.
Yeah. And so it's a very interesting species. It's one that people are familiar with as a food, which I think tracks really well with this demystification. So it doesn't have to be any more complicated than that, because white button mushrooms have good beta glucan content and soluble and insoluble fiber and ergosterol, ergothioneine. So, we're talking about consuming things as taking your food as medicine. Medicine is your food. So mushrooms fit right in there, as you know. And that's the other thing that's great about them, is they have a wide range of safety. And they have been, this one especially, has been consumed for a couple thousand years. And that's not unique to shiitake either. So, yeah.
And not to digress from shiitake, but I do know that historically in Japan, especially, the matsutake, or pine mushroom, which is my favorite to forage, they were restricted to royalty. And nowadays, a lot of foragers in BC will pick them because there's a lot of deforestation in Japan, and they no longer have a big a lot of options to forage them there. So they source from BC because we have a different species of the pine. So we export from here to there, and they're often given as like a wedding gift or something when you have a baby. They're still very prized, but that was one mushroom that was reserved for royalty that I know about because it's my favorite mushroom.
Bill and I have talked about this before, doing radio as long as I have before the podcast. I spent almost 20 years talking about mushrooms, and it felt like everybody put earplugs in for the first 15 minutes and nobody ever listened to me. And over the last like 5 to 8 years, they've just exploded. And because you're in the industry and you're passionate about what you're doing, Tiffany, where do you see the mushroom industry going?
Wow. So that's an interesting question. So when I've been with Nammex for 7.5 years, and we were just a 3-person operation in a tiny office when I started, doing a bit of everything. And when COVID hit, it was an interesting time because everyone was looking for the next thing for immunity and turning to natural health products and nutraceuticals. And business just exploded during COVID. We actually, we were one of the industries that actually could pivot through that weird time. And since then, it just continues to grow and grow and grow. And when I look at the projections over the next 5 to 10 years of the market, it's just going to continue to explode. So I do not see this slowing down at all. And now, like, the beverage industry is a big thing that's exploding too. Everyone wants mushrooms in their beverages. It's not just supplements or, a capsule or powder you're going to take. It's, do I have functional mushrooms in my drink? The skincare and beauty industry too. There's tremella, which has been used for thousands of years in skincare and beauty in China and elsewhere in Asia. And people are just starting to catch on to that. I see nothing but growth. It's just booming. And Nammex is definitely the leader in the industry. And it's nice to work somewhere where you are proud of the product you put out.
And I agree 100%, and people ask all the time, if I'm eating these mushrooms, is it okay to supplement them as well? And I always say yes. But I mean, I think that it's really good to get, both kinds of, whether it's the food line or the supplement line into your system and let them do what they do. If someone was to ask you, Bill, about shiitake, who was a candidate for shiitake, because every mushroom has their own thing. There's a lot of overlap in many of the things that they all do, if you will. But there's also specialty little areas that each of them focus on. Who would be your ideal candidate for shiitake?
Interesting question. I mean, if we make some assumptions about, the person who wants this, which not good to make any assumptions.
Well, of course.
But I really don't feel like there are some applications of shiitake that would be quite specific if you were going to use it, let's say, as a treatment. Okay. But for just general well-being and health purposes, this one, along with, I would say, every single one of the fleshy species, I mean, yeah, they do all have their specific differentiations, more so when you start to fractionate things in that mushroom versus how people have consumed them as foods, which is what we know more about over time. Because really, like, and it also, it's a little narrow in scope because Tiffany's example is prime. Like, pine mushrooms are something that people know about, have foraged or eaten, and yet it's not really something. I mean, is it commercially? Like, it's not a thing really, Tiffany, right? With as a dietary supplement extract? No.
No. It can't be called. It can't be cultivated. It can only be
cultivated. Yeah. So it's one of these things where, again, like, the more people can learn about the traditions behind these and how people cared for these in the wild, and part of that is not telling people where your secret patch is, which, like, Tiffany's laughing because I'm like, show me your pines.
I'm not saying.
Never.
But I'm still enjoying finding golden chanterelles here. So, But anyway, yeah, I think for shiitake, I would say they're very flavorful. They can be eaten as a snack. There's some things that are really good snack foods that are just the little prime buttons of
Dehydrated.
shiitake that are dehydrated and have a little natural flavoring. And like a handful of those is well, yeah, a handful of those is great. It's like that. There's your supplement, and you have a healthy snack instead of popcorn or whatever you want to eat that's crunchy and salty. So there's tons of ideas with mushrooms, and yeah, shiitake is a great example. And there is an interesting idea of it. So many things. A toothpaste. Think about that one. There are some things in shiitake that mushrooms have some antibacterial properties. They help support tissues. They have these soluble and insoluble fibers and chitins and complexes in them, and also an interesting flavor too. So like there aren't any, like I don't know if a savory toothpaste is something that would ever go over, but yeah. So Tiffany really nailed it. The applications for it indicate also that I don't know that for that specific one you could say it's for any one type of person. It is one of the ones that's noted to cause I don't know what the percentage of the population is, but a type of dermatitis or rash from eating it. But I mean, that's something that you'll read about if you dive into shiitake a little bit more. And, I don't know, Tiffany, you would know better. Like, I'm not even sure how many complaints we've gotten about that over time at Nammex.
Zero that I can think of.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But that can be true of any natural product or substance, but generally, yeah. I mean, this is the one that people are the most familiar with because it came into cultivation in the U.S. as an organic product or not, but one that people know about consuming fresh and slicing up or buying it sliced in the produce aisle.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think in that regard, it's for whoever likes mushrooms. And if you don't happen to like the taste of shiitake for whatever reason, then there are dietary supplements that are formulated in a way that maybe you don't really notice it that much, or it's in a pill. Capsules, I think, are still the most popular dosage form across the board for that. But I see the opportunities, right, to incorporate this in foods. A
Food.
soup broth.
Yeah.
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 Broth. Yeah.
Personally, I don't like a lot of mushrooms in mushroom form, but when I get to use our extracts and incorporate them into things I'm eating, then it just adds, like shiitake, for example, with the umami and the flavor, it adds to a stew or a soup or even a pasta. I can handle that more than a cooked mushroom personally. So it's nice to have that available option. And I would suggest using our extracts in like a broth or a stew if you were going to try it out at home and play around.
Are there any of the mushrooms that are more effective through food, through a diet, raw versus cooked?
This is good. What? Good question. I don't know the answer to it, but I can't think of many cases where mushrooms aren't cooked first for whatever reason, or dried, at least dehydrated and then rehydrated by boiling or hot water or something
Right.
like this.
Right.
And so, yeah, no, Tiffany, how about you? Can you think of any
I mean, there's
fresh?
something to be said about taking in a fresh, like, depending if you picked it or if you bought it at the supermarket, there's something to be said about taking in a freshly ready mushroom. But with our extracts, the idea is that the active compounds are more bioavailable because of the extraction process. So I think that's an interesting question, and it would be hard to determine what is better.
Well, if you go across America, people are familiar with mushrooms at a salad bar. They'll go in through their salad and they're putting their mushrooms on top, and that might be the only mushrooms they eat the whole year.
Yeah, that's true. That's one case I can think of where you'd slice up agaricus, white buttons, real thin, and they're at the salad bar. But yeah, because of the chitin complexes and things in most mushrooms, you may have digestive disturbances more with that type of fresh button, and if you didn't saute it up with some whatever you like to saute with, and which would mean cooking it. So yeah, but Tiffany's really nailed it, because like adding a little of that shiitake to just like ramen, right, to like jazz it up a bit or whatever is like,
Yum.
and yeah.
Well, it elevates both nutritionally, supplementally, and the flavor profile.
Do you want to dive into the chemistry a little bit of that?
I'd love to.
For the listeners, like the umami flavor.
Dive away. Let's go.
It's a compound called guanylate that is sometimes used as a added ingredient combined with MSG as like a flavor enhancer. It's a flavor enhancer, guanylate, and it's what you would find in the umami. Like when you're talking about the umami fragrance flavor, that's the chemical that's interfacing with things, and so it has interfaces where it enhances, like with sodium. So it's not really salt, but it enhances the saltiness of things, brings out the natural, like celery, for instance, right? Like has quite a bit of saltiness. So if you're trying to reduce salt, you can use some celery and use foods that are just naturally occurring with it. Well, anyway, that is something that I think is something that we've been exploring a little bit more with doing sensory panels with sommeliers and fermentation experts and people who taste things for a living and then rank them based on all kinds of complex characteristics. So this umami flavor, next to bitter, which is like the king, the queen, whatever you want to say, of pharmacological activity, I feel. But these things all work in consort. Some mushrooms, reishi is a good example, has some bitterness, but earthy as well, and they're complex. So shiitake and umami go hand in hand, and so I think that's another way that it plays well with other spices and flavors and things that you're combining it with in cooking, peppers and things like this. So
I like that. Tiffany, with you being, with Nammex for a long time now, so over 7 years is a very long time with anything these days. What keeps you in the mushroom side of the natural health industry? Because there's a lot of other things going on in this industry, but I find that people that once they dig into the mushroom side, they don't want to go anywhere else.
I have always loved my job. We have such an amazing work culture, an amazing team. I believe in the product we sell, products. I'm a lifer for Nammex, so I'm not going anywhere.
The company brings so many amazing things forward, and I think that's why they're so respected, not only in the industry through the people that are in the industry, but also for the consumers that are able to utilize the products and see and feel and make a difference. Because, there's one thing about this industry, and doing it as long as I have, I'm hitting my 47th year, so I've seen it all. I've seen companies rise, I've seen them fall, I've seen them struggle, I've seen them being a success. And the ones with the longevity traditionally have been the ones that keep the transparency, keep the quality and the integrity, keep the open door policy for information. They're educators in their own right, and they're there to make sure that people get a full understanding of the things that they're offering. And I'm so happy that we're working with you guys. I think it's great because I get to comfortably talk about these as I travel, and feel good about it, because if I don't feel good about it, I can't talk about it.
Exactly.
And, my reputation's too important to me. So, that's why when Ric was telling me everything that we're going to be using and who we're working with, I was like, sign me up. So,
yeah.
Good.
This is great to hear. And I mean, for a little history, well, Tiffany's been with the company twice as long as I have, at least. Tiffany was the first point of contact I had when I was working with Ric to, like, other than Jeff, right? Tiffany was the first person to send me samples and give me information. And Jeff handed her off and said, I found this amazing person. You're never going to believe it. And it was very early on. Yeah, no, it's true. And so and that goes way, way back to the foundations of how I see Ric building Kokora is on solid relationships and people and places and things that he knows very well and trusts. And so, I think there should be more of that in our business, where we operate from not just data and statistics and price, but the value of the human element. Yeah, long-term relationships. So it's amazing to be able to work with this group of people and do things like walking into work, found an Amanita, and it was perfect. So I brought it to our lab and said, do your thing with this. And because I know they have had local species that we find, but anyway, it's just that type of place where people get excited about that. And it doesn't hurt that it's Friday afternoon and it's a gorgeous day here. But yeah, it's a great place to work. And so I learned something from Tiffany every time I talk to her. So it's amazing.
Thanks, Bill. Likewise, you are an amazing mentor, and you have supported me through my journey here at Nammex since you've been here. So thank you.
What's interesting about this industry, as long as I've been in it, I've come across and been able to work with absolutely the icons of this industry. And I'm doing it all again now with the podcast. But what I've learned is that working with Ric, I have never worked with someone that is so uplifting and gratuitous. Because he makes you just want to work even harder just because he's so kind and so giving. And that's not the norm in any industry. So when you find a place like Kokora, you find a place like Nammex where people are supportive, there's this loving respect and everybody's lifting each other and shining light on each other. I mean, that is just priceless in any industry, but especially in ours. And if you get blessed enough during your career to land in a place like that, hold on tight, because it's not the same everywhere.
Amen to that, brother.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to tell you something funny. You talked about keeping your little hunting, foraging grounds silent. My friends live in Washington, and they have their morel places very quiet. They don't share those with anybody either.
Yeah.
Yet to ever find morels, because you have to go somewhere that's been burned previously, and I can't find them. If someone listening to this on the Sunshine Coast has a spot and they want to hook me up, I can hit you back with another spot for another mushroom.
Well, down in Washington, they've had, so many fires over the last 10 years that, my friend Ric will go up and he'll just start. And my other friend Greg is a huge morel person, and they'll go in there and they know right where to go, and they bring bushels back.
Yeah.
So they know how to do it. So, and I like morels. Have you ever eaten them before? They're really quite amazing.
I would like to one day.
They have a wonderful flavor.
Out there, send me a morel, please.
They're quite amazing. During the pandemic, I ate lion's mane for the very first time. And I was traveling, and of course, no one was traveling. And I went to this little restaurant. It was a vegan restaurant, and I walked in and I said, "Are you open?" And she's like, "We haven't had a customer in 32 days. Come on in." Because everything was closed. So she brings me out this bowl, and it has these little white chunks in it, and I could smell butter and a little bit of onions and garlic. And she says, "Try this." And I'm like, "What is it?" And she goes, "Well, just try it." And I'm like, you have no idea how many times that phrase has got me in trouble over the years.
Just try it.
So I tasted it, and it tasted like lobster. It was the most amazing thing I've ever at scallops and lobster. And I said, "I thought you were a vegan restaurant." She goes, "That's lion's mane." And I loved it so much. Then she brought me lion's mane rangoon, lion's mane stir fry, lion's mane egg rolls, and before you know it, I was eating there every single day, like twice a day, because I fell in love
Wow.
with it. It was well. Also, there was hardly anything else open, but the food was really, really good. So I think people that get to try mushrooms cooked correctly, I think they become fans.
Yeah, I'm on that path. We'll get there. Well, then I take my Nammex extracts.
Tiffany, what is your protocol? What do you take every day, mushroom wise?
So every day right now, well, I'm taking reishi every day from Real Mushrooms, which is our sister company.
Mm-hmm.
Due to some health things I've gone through, and I feel like that helps. Chaga, I will put about a little teaspoon of the powder into my coffee every morning because that works well with the flavor of coffee. Chaga, it's very nice.
Mm-hmm.
And then not every day, but I like stew and soup. I'm a soup girl and a ramen girl. So I'll often put shiitake, and actually I'm really enjoying cordyceps in my stews and soups lately. Yeah, I'm experimenting because I have access to our products. It's a constant journey of figuring out what I feel like works for me, because it's not like a magic pill where you take it once and you're going to feel something. It's a journey where you have to keep up with it, and then you see long-term results. So I'm figuring that out myself for
Wonderful.
my personal
Wonderful.
needs.
I think that it's such an amazing category. And, over the years, we've gone through all of them. We've done amino acids, we've done vitamins, we've done herbs, we've done all these things. And this is the category that just took so long for people to reach out and embrace. And even though around the world it's been being embraced for centuries,
Yeah.
over here we
And
pride ourselves in this country being ahead of the game on everything, but we're really not in many things. So I love that people are embracing mushrooms, and it's become a huge category in our industry. I mean, if you look at Spins magazine, which kind of shows the course of sales in health food stores, it's like ashwagandha, turmeric, mushrooms, and they just bounce back and forth for the top of the category, and I love that.
Yeah. A lot of people are putting up products with ashwagandha and mushrooms. It seems to be like a magic mix right now in a lot of products I'm seeing. Like,
Yeah, we're
especially,
doing that.
yeah.
No, I think it's wonderful. Anything else that you want to add about shiitake, Bill, that we might have missed?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's a powerhouse of nutrients in one mushroom. And so it's also one that, like, if you get them at the store fresh and you're going to cook with them, if you put them in your windowsill or someplace where they can be exposed to some sunlight, they'll continue to produce more vitamin D too as they're exposed to sunlight. And I know in the production of the mushrooms to dry them in China, they're always trying to lay them up, gills up, when they're shade or sun drying to partially dehydrate them before finishing them when they're going to dry shiitakes. So it's just very interesting. And, the more you look at let's say, the biology of a shiitake mushroom, starts to look very similar to the biology of human cells. The more and more, like, very close. Vitamin D production with exposure to UV rays, and then it's also one that's quite high in ergothioneine, and I would suspect that most of even the ones in the store would have pretty good ergothioneine. And this is something else that I think is an up and coming thing to watch for folks listening to the show, because as you will learn about ergothioneine, it's really a key to how many other things that are in mushrooms, especially things that have a microbiome or gut biome interaction, work ultimately, or do the good things in the body that they need to do. And so this would be something to look out for. Let's say it's a hot nutrient. I think it should be classified as an essential nutrient, because you can't produce it from any other byproducts that you eat. So you have to get it from an outside source. And mushrooms are notably one of the highest sources of this ergothionine.
5%, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, the interactions and benefits of no-till practices like Kokora employs in regenerative agriculture. There's a strong link to higher levels of ergothionine in soils that haven't been disturbed by tilling practices because of the ectomycorrhizal interactions with the fungi that happen in the soil to produce this. So very, very interesting thing to follow. And yeah, I think it's the more we know, the less we know in some regards, because we're only looking at a very limited number of mushrooms, true types of fungi that would produce a fruiting body mushroom, and that are out there. I mean, there's tons that just you walk by every day. What do they call them, Tiffany? LBMs, little brown mushrooms,
or lever rights. Lever rights there.
Yeah, leave them right there. Leave them right. Yeah, because there's so many, and I see it now when I'm walking around the forest here, and when I used to ask Jeff on little romps, and I'm like, "What's that?" And he's like, "An LBM." I'm like, "What does that mean?" He's like, "Little brown mushroom." So even a seasoned mycologist like that, they're very careful, because you're IDing something, like some are deadly, some are 100% foods that you could eat every single day, and sometimes the difference is not all that much between one and the other in these species, right, Tiffany? So it goes to the quality aspects too, of like when you start to do this and provide it at scale on a reproducible fashion for your clients, on a that starts to become where you have to employ these standards for organic growing on a farm, not in a lab, on an agricultural venture. Like Nammex's mushrooms are grown on farms, not in a lab where people are wearing Tyvek suits, walking around doing lab procedures. That's a different thing. That might be a fungal product, but it's not how I've ever seen mushrooms grown. So I think, yeah, the more we'll learn this, and we have a lot of great resources on our website and other places to sort of educate people on how this has been supported for centuries in China, and how their whole sort of supply chain and infrastructure has been set up for this type of specific agriculture related to growing mushrooms in a farmed venture, because they are incentivizing folks to grow more specialty crops like lion's mane, and happy to see the boom in that type of species because they grow a lot of agaricus. They grow enokis, they grow everything that you would think of that you're eating for food in massive quantities. And these bring a better market for the farmers to make a better living, basically, and everybody benefits from it. So, yeah.
For that, Tiffany, anything in closing? Anything you think we missed?
I don't think so. I think we kind of covered everything. We made a good team.
I think it's wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure to have you. And now you're just a regular now, because you've already done this, so it's all good.
Thank you for having me.
I love it.
So
I love you guys, and I thank you so much for taking the time. I hope everybody enjoyed this today. Once again, another episode working with Nammex and these amazing mushrooms. Today I've been speaking with Bill Chioffi and Tiffany Kiwaja. I hope you like this. I'm going to bring them back again, of course, because they're incredible at what they're doing. Remember, the whole idea is to talk about good health and well-being from the inside and outside the natural products industry, and the things that can be life-changing. And remember, sometimes that little bit of information, you never know where it's going to come from. So keep your hearts, keep your mind, and keep everything open for those messages that are always coming your way. Everybody have a great day. Thank you guys so much for being here. Hope to have you back again soon. Tiffany, you want to come back and see us again, I hope?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Perfect. My pleasure. Have a great day, everyone. Be well, and God bless.
Stay tuned for more information from the Honest Health Podcast with Jeffrey Burke. And make sure to check back often for interviews and conversations from the guests we all want to hear from. I'm John the Announcer. Thanks for listening.